It's time for the MotoAmerica AMA FIM North American Road Race Championship. It's our first round of 7 for 2025 in the Mission King of the Baggers class. We're at the World Center of Racing here in Daytona Beach, Florida, from Daytona International Speedway. It's time to get on the high banks and get racing. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the broadcast. Welcome to the broadcast booth. I'm Greg White, standing alongside two-time national champ Jason Pridmore. Now, Jason, here we are. Everything is set back to even. It's the beginning of the season, but the field is so talented this year, it's crazy competitive.
We got 3 newcomers, Greg, but they're not really newcomers. Bradley Smith on the factory Harley. Then we're going to have Cam Peterson, who we've seen in Superbike, and how about Loris Baz on the factory Indian as well.
Let's take a look at highlights from 2024 and what happened here at Daytona International.
Well, last year, if you remember, Troy Herfoss came over from Australia, signed on to race in America in King of the Baggers for that factory Indian squad. And at this particular race, Greg, this is probably where he learned the most, in the sense that you could see what he was beat by there, such a small margin of victory. In the second race, look at the battle that we had, but it was really that run from out of the chicane to the front, to the actual checkered flag itself, is where Kyle performed some magic.
And we look at our drag specialties inside the numbers. This class began in 2020 as an exhibition race, but here are race winners that are active. Kyle Wyman leads them all by 18, but Troy Herfoss, who did it all last year, has 7 wins to his credit. But it's all about the high banks here with these Mission King of the Baggers. Jason, tell us about it.
Yeah, the Yamaha track map, Greg, as you look down there, turn 3, that's the International Horseshoe. That's where you'll see a lot of crazy action after they start from pit lane. Turn 4, fast kink, but really, Greg, it's that chicane, turn 9 and 10. How are you going to get through there? That's where these races were won and lost last year on the run back to the checkered flag.
Awesome racetrack, and our onboard look is our Insta 360. And on board is Cameron Peterson. As you take a look and listen, we'll be back with race action in a moment.
Roger, we just saw that graphic that was up on the screen. The all-time race winners here in Mission King of the Baggers. There is Kyle Wyman aboard that number 33, leading the way. It's a young championship, and when you stack it up against the other categories, but 18 victories for Kyle.
Yeah, and ever since the very first race of King of the Baggers, Kyle has been one of the best guys and has been up for the win every single race since then. He's piled up a lot of wins. You know, he's even the titles that he hasn't won, he's been in the fight. So, and, you know, I know this year Kyle really wants to get that #1 plate back on that Harley, and he's been impressive. And Kyle also raises the bar in this class. I mean, he always finds a little bit more, and everybody has to dig a little bit deeper.
Bikes now exiting pit lane for their sighting lap. When the conditions change as much as they have, and a lot of these riders, when they left the qualifying session, was with a couple of issues, Roger. What are they looking for on these laps?
I think really, I mean, it is a warm-up lap, but you want to kind of feel the track out so you can get going early on in the race and make some moves, or even try to break away. If you had some sort of mechanical, you want to try to feel that out on this lap as well. But you also want to make sure you really get the tires warmed up, especially here on the right side. It is hot out, but there still isn't a lot of right-handers here at Daytona. Here's one right here. I think you just see a lot of guys getting their way through it, and just seeing what the track is like.
The track here at Daytona, Roval, if you want to call it that, the infield road course with the oval being used as well. How do you balance those two?
Well, it's hard because you got to have a bike that handles well on the banking and then also the infield, and you just got to give up a little bit in some places for the overall lap.
All right, as they make their way around, we're going to send it back over to Greg and Jason.
Mission King of the Baggers coverage is brought to you by Mission Foods, the world's leading brand for tortillas and wraps. Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series. Drag Specialties, an industry-leading distributor of aftermarket parts and accessories for Harley-Davidson, Indian, and custom V-twin motorcycles. And by NXT Bets. Play MotoAmerica for cash. Multiple race classes live on Top Sportsbook and DFS platforms all season long.
Welcome back to a beautiful day here in Daytona Beach, Florida, as Mission King of the Baggers are on the banking on their way to their grid position in anticipation of getting this 8-lap race underway. And Man, I'm going to tell you something. Let's take a look at the starting grid, because on pole position is Kyle Wyman, a 1:49.383 and a new lap record.
Yeah, and then we have Troy Herfoss and Loris Baz. Never been to this track before, hadn't Loris, so new one for him. Bradley Smith, you saw that, Rispoli and Tyler O'Hara. And then we have Gillum, Peterson, and Rocco Landers with Onsorg Lewis and Corey West just outside of row 4. And then Max Flinders just coming back there on row 5. Max missed quite a bit of practice, I thought, yesterday. I didn't see his name moving on our screen at all yesterday. So he's on a Harley this year, not on the Indian that we've seen him in the past. I think he made that switch at the end of last year. But yeah, let's see how this goes.
All right, let's see if fan favorite Max Flinders back there in 13th place can make his way and get a couple of positions as he looks forward. So we go from our hot pit lane to turn number 1, something that's unique when races start, but it's all about off the back straightaway on our very first run to the chicane to see if someone's in a 5, 6, 8 rider draft, if they got the brakes. So the lights go off. Here we go. We're going racing. It looks like Kyle Wyman got a good launch, and he's going to hold the inside line, and it's going to be the 33 who leads us into turn 1. Oh, man. And an accident. Down goes a couple riders.
One of them looks like
Rispoli.
Rispoli looks like one of them. And I'm not sure who the other one was. But yep, that was big down into turn number 1. I wanted to, is it Baz? Could be Baz.
Yeah, it looks like Baz. I can tell from the helmet. So Loris Baz out of this one with Rispoli. A little bit of contact. And you never know, with this time first race start, with the extra width of those bags, contact is made, and it looks like both riders are up and going to be okay, and that's the best you can hope for.
Yep. So that's gonna promote a couple other guys here. As you look like the battle for third right now is kind of raging, and it's going to be Hayden Gillum and Bradley Smith there. Hayden Gillum takes that point in third, and then looks like it could be Tyler O'Hara or Ornsorg. No, that's it. Yeah, it's hard to just see the number there, Greg, that I'm missing. I see Rocco Landers there just back. So yeah, that's a big shakeup down into turn 1, and these guys are going to be so close all year long. I'm trying to figure out, it looks like James just rode kind of into the back of Baz there. Now, Greg, you got to keep in mind here, Baz never been here before. He's never started from pit lane before. So, it looks like he was just kind of getting used to where he was supposed to be. Did absolutely nothing wrong. But maybe he just checked up, and James just didn't account for that. And he just got into the back of Loris. And you can see he made a mess of the bikes. And James immediately goes over and checks on Loris Baz there.
Yeah, he just got into those brakes hard and had to kind of stand it up, did Rispoli, and clip the rear tire, and down they go. But back to the race up front, and it looks like Kyle Wyman just starting to just get away, and nobody in sight yet for Kyle Wyman.
When you say that, Herfoss is about a half second back, but you can see what it did to the rest of the field. It kind of split everything up. Looks like as they come across, Bradley Smith third, O'Hara and Rocco Landers. The pity for this, really, when you think about Loris and James, is especially for Baz. Like I said, he's never been here. Getting these race laps under his belt would have been so key today, but that's not going to happen. So here you go, Bradley Smith, fresh from, I mean, Greg, I don't know the last time he actually raced. I know he did a World Supersport race a couple of years ago, but he's primarily been testing after his MotoGP career. We've seen him test with Yamaha. We've seen him test just recently even with BMW on their Superbike. And, a lot of the testing and stuff that he did over the last year or so really promoted BMW to that World Superbike Championship with Toprak. So Bradley is running third right now, and we'll see if they can make any impression on the leaders. For him, it's just about getting these laps, though.
So 38 is Bradley Smith on the Harley-Davidson Dynojet Factory Racing Road Glide. Up onto the banking they go, and his teammate Kyle Wyman, the 33, leads this way, but being stalked by the number 1, the S&S Indian motorcycle on the Indian Challenger. That's number 1, Troy Herfoss out of Australia.
Yeah, and Kyle put in a great first sector, a big, fast first sector. So he's trying to extend this lead the best he can. As you go back there and you look at Bradley Smith, and he's got Tyler O'Hara still locked onto him as they roll out of the chicane. Left side of your screen there is Kyle Wyman already high up on the bankings. You see him, Greg, above that white line. Then he'll start to make the drift back down to the bottom. And Herfoss, he's still in our screen, so he's not going to go anywhere. He's going to try to keep the pressure on the 33 as they come across the line now. Look at these lap times, 49.6s for both guys. So Troy a little bit quicker in sector 2 and 3. Bradley Smith and O'Hara come across some second and a half slower.
And Herfoss off of 186.5 mile-an-hour top speed, able to close a little bit on Kyle Wyman. Fastest lap of the race so far, 149.608.
Yeah, now you can see, Greg, perfect weather here today at Daytona, but you can see Herfoss is able to make up that ground, and he's made up that ground by getting down into turn one off of that top speed that you're talking about. And he's made up the ground that he needs to on Kyle. Now it's going to be just about 5.5 laps more of some cat and mouse between the two of them, as it will between these two also, with Cam Peterson running 5th, and Rocco is right behind Cam for that top 5. Cam Peterson's first time racing a bagger as well, and you see him just off the back of these two here, and he's got Rocco Landers directly behind him, and then Jake Lewis 7th on the Saddleman bike. Good to see that. Saddleman bikes last year weren't running up quite as high as they are now, so for Jake Lewis running 7th with Gilliam in 8th.
On the high banks, trying to find a draft. Oh, and hand in the air.
Uh-oh.
Don't know if that's an individual thing. There's no flags out, but that's an indication that something has gone wrong.
Yeah, something definitely there.
We'll see how that plays out, but Wyman continues to lead the way. 149.672 to Troy Herfoss's 149.608.
The thing is, Craig, is Kyle is quicker in that first sector, and he opens up a big enough gap. Even though Herfoss is faster in sector 2 and coming to the line here from the chicane, he's a little bit quicker. But look at the speeds again of these guys, Craig. 183 to 185.
Incredible.
Bradley Smith there has now got a little bit of a gap because that was O'Hara that dropped out.
Let's welcome the third member of our broadcast team, Hannah Lopa, in talking about Bradley Smith. Hey, Hannah.
Yeah, guys, a lot of new faces in the field, Bradley Smith being one of them. Third right now, I'm sure he's pretty happy with himself, the way things are going. When I spoke to him, he said, you know, it's really difficult to prepare for so much newness. It's a new series for him, a new track and a new motorcycle. He said he felt like he was on the back foot, whereas his competitors have been here before. It's like putting on an old pair of slippers for them. He said he's still looking for that perfect Cinderella slipper, perfect fit. Today, they've definitely made some progress. He's got Claudio Corti as his crew chief here this weekend, and a familiar face under the canopy in James Rispoli. They've been friends for like 15 years or so, he said. So definitely some good guidance from them. Really excited to get things started, and just hoping to do as best as he can today and learn as much as he possibly can.
Sounded like we had a crash, and it's the #1 plate of Troy Herfoss who goes down just out of our camera's view. We heard it. Jason and I looked at each other. We could hear it as Herfoss hits the deck. That's going to promote Bradley Smith into 2nd place, and Cameron Peterson up into 3rd, last time by the stripes. So Kyle Wyman now all by himself with a massive lead.
Yeah, this is a bummer. We haven't seen this much out of Troy, so let's see if he can get back on and at least get some important championship points. He knows how key that is here. Good for Troy getting back on. You see the front fairing, Greg. While Hannah was giving that report, I heard something in my ear, looked out the window and saw Kyle coming up onto the west banking on his own. Now, he's not going to know that. The pressure, Greg, that was applied by Kyle was in that first sector. He was routinely 2, 3, 4 tenths ahead. Now he has a look over his shoulder. He may have even heard something when he went into there. So 1st and 2nd now for the factory Harleys, but look who's coming. Cam Peterson is getting lap by lap a little bit more comfortable on what that bagger feels like. And remember, Cam had only been here one time before. He ran the Daytona 200, I think 2 years ago for the attack team. So this is a completely different bike, a completely different feel getting on the bankings with this big bagger. But he's going to find himself right now battling for 2nd place as they've opened up a really big gap between Jake Lewis and Rocco Landers. Jake Lewis now running 4th on that Saddleman Harley-Davidson.
Boy, both of these riders running 2nd and 3rd, new to this class. They've done plenty of testing between themselves. Of course, we look at Cameron Peterson on the SDI Racing Indian Challenger, but the physicality of these motorcycles, these are 620-pound minimum motorcycles, right? 620 minimum. Now you have to add the rider to the mix. You have to ride the leathers, boots, gloves, helmets, the fuel, and these things are getting well over 700 pounds. It's a different physicality. Hannah?
For Cam Peterson, he actually told me before this weekend he only got about 13 laps on this bike ahead of this weekend, but to back things up, the end of last season, he said, you know, he was having a hard time, wasn't really having any fun, and he had some prolonged injuries that didn't really help things and found himself without a ride. And he's the first person to admit he wasn't maybe the biggest fan of the bagger class, but he got the call to come and test a bagger, and he figured, why not? I'm going to see what this thing is all about. And he's really happy that he got the call because he's really finally enjoying himself again. It's renewed his sense of excitement around racing. He's familiar with this track and not the bike. He said he's still riding it a little bit too aggressive the way that he would ride a super bike. So he's trying to really make it feel like his own, but otherwise he's really excited for this new endeavor.
And that renewed sense, of course, it plays in every part of your life, whether it's from waking up in the morning and getting training to eating right to doing all the things you need to be doing as a racer. So that is a huge motivation. It looks like Herfoss.
Yeah, you fall like that, you see that fairing just hanging down, it just puts a lot of stress on other parts of the bike as you see stuff falling off a little bit. And you know, the thing is, Greg, is if he can still get out, he's 10th right now. And I'm looking to see split wise, he's about 4 seconds off in that first split. I haven't seen to see if he's actually pulled back into the pits because he did pop up on our board with the first split. So I'll have to see. This race is still raging on between these two guys. Bradley's had a look over his shoulder now to see who it is.
Play MotoAmerica for cash. Baggers and Supersport Series are now live on top Sportbooks DFS platform. Scan the flow code or visit nxtbets.com/PlayMA to see what's available in your location. Sign up, claim exclusive bonuses, and make your picks now.
Bradley ran just a little bit wide in that west horseshoe, and I'm not sure if that was a way of him maybe wanting to see if Cam wanted to go underneath him and let him lead for a lap or so. So I don't know if that was actually the case. But you see, I just looked out my window, Greg, and I did see Troy Herfoss go across. He's running in 9th, so he's just trying to bring that thing home. But this guy here, out on a Sunday ride now, is Kyle Wyman. Last time by, he went 52.2. Keep in mind, Greg, earlier on in the race, he went 49.6. This is going to be your biggest battle right now. And it's so funny how races like this explode. We talked at the head of the show about how this could be 9 guys in the lead draft. We have Baz and Rispoli go down early, and it just kind of blew the race apart, didn't it?
I think so, and on back of what was just an unbelievable first lap for Kyle Wyman.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, we did have a Mission Challenge race a couple hours ago. It's a 2-lap race for a $5,000 purse, and Kyle Wyman absolutely shredded on that first lap. And I think it's a lot of experience. Kyle Wyman has been here since the beginning of Mission King of the Baggers, and the experience and the work that his team, the Harley-Davidson by Dynojet Factory Racing team, has been able to accomplish has been great. And that work that Kyle Wyman has put in also paying dividends for Bradley Smith in 2nd place. And I guarantee you, down here in Daytona Beach, Florida, at the end of Bike Week 2025, Harley-Davidson would like nothing more than to have a 1-2 on the podium in Mission King of the Baggers race number 1 of 2 for the weekend. And Bradley Smith under braking, getting a little sideways. Keep in mind, these are motorcycles with no electronic aids.
Yeah,
you know, there's no traction control like you see on super bikes. So everything they're doing is all right wrist. It's kind of a throwback type racing here in Mission King of the Baggers. And tip of the cap to Bradley Smith, who shows up, gets some tests in on this bike, as well as Cam Peterson, as these two class rookies, kind of weird saying that,
it is weird,
are ahead of Kyle Ohnsorg, who's now moved into 4th place on the 78. So Ohnsorg ahead of Jake Lewis. Is there some battles going on back of the field here in Mission King of the Baggers race number 1?
Yeah, impressive ride from Kyle Ohnsorg and Jake Lewis, right? So I'm not sure exactly. Obviously, Tyler O'Hara might have a problem because we'd expect him to be further up than 8th place. And Tyler there doing 52.2. I know we've seen him go a little bit quicker, so I'm not sure if he has had a problem or had a problem. Obviously, we saw him at the beginning kind of pull over, but he's still stayed out there and is going around. So this guy here now is going to come, I believe. Is he coming to the white flag this time? I think he is, Greg. He's coming to the white flag lap. Yeah. So you're going to see the white flag as he comes across the tri-oval right now. There it is. White flag is out. And Bradley Smith right now had a little bit of a gap on Cam Peterson.
Kyle slowed down quite a bit. He's done a 155 flat, so they've closed the gap now down to 3 seconds. You can see there's the battle for second.
Cam went through. Bradley Smith let off the gas really, really early going into turn 1, like really early, because Cam P was quite a bit a ways behind him. So maybe this was Bradley's thought was, hey, I've seen so many people lose this race from the chicane to the checkered flag, and he doesn't want to be caught out like that. So he is now going to get to follow Cam Peterson. I think 2 laps ago he tried to let Cam pass in this next turn that they're going to be going in. He ran really, really wide and was kind of looking over his shoulder, and now he's going to get in behind Cam Peterson to see if he's going to be able to draft past him.
And if Kyle Wyman is just managing this race, Jay, where he just kind of slowed down just to make sure he gets home nice and comfortable, he could put a little pressure on the 2 riders behind him going, wow, we just reeled him in by about 5 seconds.
That's right.
off of a 155 to 151s of Bradley Smith and Cameron Peterson. But up onto the banking comes your factory Harley-Davidson Dynojet Factory Racing Road Glide racer Kyle Wyman on the 33 as he heads towards the chicane. And they come across, and it's like 101 for Kyle in sector number 1. So there's no extreme hurry up in that one, as coming off the back straight into the chicane comes the battle for second place. And now it looks like Bradley Smith is in a good position to draft and pass.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he did. He played this pretty smart, did Bradley, for his first time here. So he's done his study, and you know how smart he is just from all of the testing he's done on all these different bikes. And look at that factory Harley goes right by. And Cam might have even let off a little bit there to try to do that, but it's all about this guy.
The number 33, Kyle Wyman, in our first race of 2025, comes across the stripe. He'll take the checkered flag and the maximum 25 points to lead this championship. And Bradley Smith will be second place, 2.5 seconds behind his teammate Cameron Peterson in his first race on the podium. And coming across the number 78 of Kyle Ohnsorg on the Tab Performance Racing Indian Challenger. Jake Lewis 5th, Tyler O'Hara in 6th, Rocco Landers in 7th, and unfortunately, Hayden Gillum.
Oh, the bike broke.
Yeah, last year's reigning champ, the number 1 plate in 2024 from his 2023 championship on that Revzilla Motul Vance & Hines Harley-Davidson. He is not going to finish the race.
And if Troy Herfoss does come across the line like we anticipate, that's going to be an 8th place for him. So he's still going to get some championship points here that could be the thing that separates him at the end of the year.
We'll be talking about this race for Herfoss if he ends up defending his number 1 plate. But it's time to head towards victory lane and celebrations as we look at Loris Baz and James Rispoli, 2 veterans of racing in Europe, down in turn number 1. Didn't even get to complete lap number 1 or turn number 1 at this point, but they're going to have a go at it tomorrow. Factory Indian and Factory Harley-Davidson riders down. But right now, on top of the pile, and all smiles, Kyle Wyman, Bradley Smith, 1 and 2. And you can see Kyle Wyman, it's that first lap, Jay, that he went out full-time lap and just threw it down.
Yeah, he had that first part, but I'm really wondering about that 55 flat, if he felt something or if he made a big mistake somewhere. So we'll have to find out later exactly what happened to Kyle on that lap.
So Kyle Wyman making his way around this 3.5-mile racetrack. And his first win of 2025, because it's the first race of 2025 for Kyle Wyman. And boy, this one is going to put a smile on his face. As we go to break, we'll come back and talk to Kyle Wyman and find out exactly how that race unfolded for the 33.
Wow, Roger, as we watch that 8-lap race to kick off this season, what a shakeup in terms of what we were expecting.
Yeah, definitely was a big shakeup from what we were expecting. We expected Kyle and Troy to be at the front, but from there on, it was definitely a totally different race than we was expecting with the mistake in turn 1 with James Rispoli and Loris Baz. Also, a lot of other riders. I think the Vance & Hines Harleys had some issues as well. But Kyle Wyman, just phenomenal ride, what he always does, and he's so good on that first lap. When he won the Daytona 200 years back, he did the exact same thing. It was a 5-lap shootout, and he won it on the first lap, just checked out on those guys, caught him by surprise, and he's just so consistent.
Bradley Smith, the gains that he's been able to make over the course of this weekend, perhaps he didn't have the speed to get himself up there into that podium contention. but he was right there when he needed to be, and he continued to just put in lap after lap.
The first practice, Bradley Smith was 12th. So like you said, he just climbed up as the weekend went on. The first qualifying yesterday afternoon, he was 10th. So he just slowly, kind of methodically worked his way up toward the front, and toward the end of that second qualifier this morning when it counted, Bradley was able to get his way toward the front and end up on the podium.
How about Cameron Peterson? We were excited about him joining this category. He knew it was going to be an uphill battle. He knew he didn't have the experience, but he was right there when he needed to be.
He was right there. He was losing a lot on the banking. So for Cam and the team, they can kind of figure out getting that run down the banking tomorrow. He might be able to fight for another podium.
You see all of the riders getting into their positions there. A great result for that Harley-Davidson factory racing team. Let's send it back to Greg, Jason, and Hannah.
Mission King of the Baggers coverage is brought to you by Mission Foods, the world's leading brand for tortillas and wraps. Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series. Drag Specialties, an industry-leading distributor of aftermarket parts and accessories for Harley-Davidson, Indian, and custom V-twin motorcycles. And by NXT Bets. Play MotoAmerica for cash. Multiple race classes live on top sportsbook and DFS platforms all season long.
As Kyle Wyman rolls into victory lane here at Daytona International Speedway, and a good race for him. Like I said, on the back of that first incredible lap by Kyle Wyman. Here's a look at those results. It's Wyman over Bradley Smith in his debut. Cameron Peterson also on the podium. Onsorg Lewis, great results
really
for
good.
the Saddlemen development team. It's just outstanding. Tyler O'Hara, Rocco Landers, Troy Herfoss, Hayden Gillum, and Max Flinders are going to be in that order, with only Troy Herfoss scoring points in 8th place. Let's get down to Hannah, who has our winner, Kyle Wyman.
Well, it has certainly been a long winter for Kyle Wyman. To think about how last season ended, and a long winter for the Harley-Davidson factory racing team to get back to work. Kyle, this weekend has gone, all things considered, perfect so far, with pole position, the challenge win, and now the first race win. How did the team set you up for success?
They built me a fast Harley-Davidson. That's what they did, and man, that was hairball for a little bit. We were pushing pretty hard. I knew Troy was right there, and I was kind of waiting to see, whose tire's going to go off first. And from there, I just kind of, I could hear him every lap, but I was trying to put the heat on, trying to turn it up throughout the race, and I was in disbelief when I looked back the first time. I was like, because I didn't hear him. I was like, is he right on me? Because I literally didn't see anybody, and just huge. Whoa. Okay. I guess we want to go again. Huh? Yeah.
Just start it in victory lane.
Huge thanks to the factory Harley-Davidson DynoJet team. Let's do it again tomorrow, or right now.
Congratulations, Kyle Wyman, today's race winner. Moving on over, second place today, Bradley Smith making his Mission King of the Baggers debut and a podium finish. I know this is an absolute monster of a track, and the learning curve is steep. Did things kind of unfold in a way you were able to anticipate, or how different was it from what you had in mind?
Absolutely not. I didn't expect to be on the podium, so that's a winner. Considering where we were yesterday, like after FP1, I think that I've improved about 7 seconds since then, so hell of a job from my crew. We had some technical issues yesterday. We fixed those. It was very greasy out there. Kyle did a tremendous job using the tire at the beginning. I kind of feel that once he rolled off, I was able to hang. And then just try to be smart. I used the slipstream from Cam on the last lap there. I knew we had enough of a gap, and just made sure that he wasn't going to slipstream past me. But thanks to Harley-Davidson, thanks for the belief bringing me over, and this is fun.
Harley-Davidson Factory Racing 1-2, and a new face, Bradley Smith, on the podium. Speaking of new faces on the podium, rounding out your Mission King of the Baggers finishers today, Cameron Peterson. Take us through that last lap there. You were able to make your way around Bradley Smith. How did things unfold?
Yeah, I mean, stoked to be up here, first things first. And also I hope everybody's okay. There was a pretty big incident in the first turn, and so definitely some luck my way. But yeah, the boys did such a great job, even from qualifying this morning to the race. The bike felt a lot better, especially on old tires. So yeah, I mean, it's just a big learning curve for me. You know, you got to ride this thing quite a bit different, and definitely wasn't expecting this. But yeah, the last lap, try to make a move on Bradley. I knew he was going to try to slip me to the line, but yeah, I tried everything I could, but we did it. And thanks to Indian, thanks to SDI Racing, everybody involved in this program, it's pretty rad.
Cam Peterson rounding out your Mission King of the Baggers podium, guys.
Well, from 8th place to the podium is pretty impressive. And of course, this is how we score points in MotoAmerica. 25 for win, 20 for second, 16 for third. So that's the way this championship is going to stand for the night, for the evening, as we get race number 2 underway tomorrow for Mission King of the Baggers. Well, for Hannah and Jason, I'm Greg. Thanks so much for joining us. A very interesting first race of the Mission King of the Baggers season. I guarantee you it's not going to end like this tomorrow, so you'll want to check it out. See you then.